Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Jackie Vanderveld. I'm a Director of Wellbeing Australia and a member of the Veteran Wellbeing Summit Organising Committee, and it's my great pleasure to be the host. But I'm the host who won't be doing very much actually, because in fact one of the other panellists is going to take over from me very shortly. But in keeping with Wellbeing Australia's vision to support an environment where all Australians are engaged, motivated to learn and develop, and are proactive in managing their own wellbeing, we're gathering stories and people who have success in promoting veteran wellbeing, mental health and suicide prevention. So before I hand over the microphone to Ian, who's going to be managing this for us today, this presentation is being recorded and will be available on demand afterwards. And next, we would love to hear from you during the presentation. And at different times, I think Ian's going to be asking if people would like to share their story. There'll be an opportunity to do that, and he will give you instructions on how you can do that. And I'm pretty confident, Ian, I can actually help people talk. But if that fails, and it's been an interesting day. I've left home and I'm in a mate's office because we had no power. So who knows what could happen today. But if that fails, we've always got the chat that's available, the chat function available to us. And lastly, we'd love you to share today's webinar and all of the other events for the Veteran Wellbeing Summit via your social networks using the VWS 2020 hashtag. So I'm handing over to you now, Ian.
Thank you very much, Jackie, for that. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ian Story. I'm one of two co-founders of Servulink, and I'll be facilitating this morning's session. As Jackie mentioned, I would like your participation as we walk through our session today. And you can do that by entering comments into the chat box. And also, if you'd like to have a discussion, tell us your story. Please also make that comment as we go through. We've got some excellent panelists today. We've got Belinda Wilson, CEO of Bravery Trust. We've got Scott War, CEO from Legacy, but we'll do introductions to each of those as we work through the panel. Now, to start us off today, to frame up, if you like, our conversation around being able to understand, finding, accessing, and working with veterans and veteran service providers. I'd like to hand over to Matt. Matt Brennan is also co-founder for Servulink. Matt, take us away.
Thanks very much, Ian, and thanks very much, Jackie, for the opportunity. Welcome, Belinda. Welcome, everyone online listening in as well. It's a great opportunity to speak about Servulink and about the whole veteran services and support environment in Australia at the moment. I'm just going to quickly do a screen share. Before I do, I would like to thank and put a shout out to Dallas and the team at New South Wales Veterans Employment, and such a fantastic program they've got running there. So well done, and keep that up. Let me find my screen. All right. Apologies.
No, that's okay. It's been one of those days. It's fine.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, you'll be able to see something now.
Yes, we can. That's great.
All right. Now, let me just frame up what Servulink and the problem and the landscape when it comes to veteran service and support. What we're all about is exactly as you can see there, empowering veterans and families to find and connect with services, support and community. I'm a veteran. I left the Army after 30 years in April 2018. My journey was relatively problem-free, although what I did find and what I did utilise constantly was my network and my connection with my mates, with previous serving and current serving people to help me connect. What I found though was once I left that workforce and that tribe or that family and I moved into a consulting environment in Canberra, was that the broader veteran community service and support space is quite large and complex, and I only really knew about 10%. And after 30 years of spending time in uniform and working around the world and in Australia, I was quite disappointed and shocked to find that there was so much out there and no shortage of goodwill, but it seemed that it was a fairly opaque environment. And so those that might need more support than I did at the time would have problems connecting with that support. So if you can see the problem slide there now, as you can see, and as I've mentioned, it is a large, complex environment with thousands of different providers, ex-service organisations, charities, government and corporate providers out there with a whole range of outstanding programs, and a number of whom are dialed into this webinar today. But I always think of those that are leaving the service, or they're serving and then their former service life, might struggle and might have some challenges or unique requirements that are not being met and that were met while they were serving it, but they might struggle on transition. So just finding and accessing the right support at the right time, that's really what people need. And there has to be a way in 2020, in these days with so many providers around, to be able to find and access that support. Worst case, and I'll take you to the middle of the screen and the bottom of the screen, worst case, that complexity and the myriad of things available can be quite overwhelming. And if there is a lack of service performance, then there is a sense of confusion or frustration that can build in, leading to fundamentally a loss of trust in the system or in the systems and entities that might be there to help you, which worst case can lead to some really bad outcomes for people and their families, which is absolutely the last thing that anyone wants. The terrible statistic at the bottom of the screen there, I know we're talking about veteran wellness and wellbeing, but it's through the context of the scourge of veteran suicide that is confronting us at the moment. This is an absolutely unacceptable situation, and it is a call to action. Okay, just a quick slide now on what I'll call that wicked veteran service cycle. So the thesis of what I came up with in my initial work in this space and my research, which led Ian and I to form Servulink, was that surely there is a better way of getting connection and awareness and education of people out there about service knowledge, what is available. But if you lack that service knowledge and you look at the top bubble there and you work your way around clockwise, that can lead to a low motivation because you don't know what's out there, but you think, or you might assume, that there is very little. Added to that, if you do have any poor service performance that you've been confronted with, be it through government or be it through other entities, then that's going to affect your motivation, ultimately your trust. You see the trust impacts all the way through there on how you're positioning yourself and your family to find support or assistance. And it goes on. Negative perceptions can then grow and then affecting your service take-up. And if you're not taking up the service that's available, then your service knowledge is going to be low as well, and it can continue on. So that it becomes a wicked cycle and a wicked problem, which I believe absolutely, as does Ian, that there are so many opportunities now to confront this, to break this cycle and deal with it so that we can better facilitate people's lives and effectively improve their situations. Hopefully that sets the scene in relation to the problem and the landscape that we're confronting at the moment. I'll now pass back to Ian, and we might have some further discussion. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt. Matt, thanks for framing up the issue in regards to there are so many good service providers out there, and yet it is a very complex issue at being able to find the right service providers and working with the service providers. It is a very complex environment. What I'd like to do is ask you, the audience, now for your thoughts, your comments. Share with us some of your journeys in regards to good and bad, some of the complexities in being able to find, access and work with veteran providers. That'll help take us into the next part of the conversation, which is working and talking to some of these great service providers and further with what Servulink is doing about helping simplify this process. Jackie, I think we've got Kai Wyndham to share a bit of her story and her journey.
Hello, can you hear me?
Coming through well, Kai.
Okay, good morning. Yes, I would just like to share a common experience for me as a partner of a veteran. I often find that, or have found in the past, that when you're trying to access particular services, it's often in a time when you might be very vulnerable, the circumstances might be very vulnerable, and you have a real sense of urgency of trying to get, your kids sorted, get them in with learning support, health support, whatever it might be. And I think because it's just so complicated, you don't know. I didn't know where to start, and because I didn't know where to start, I didn't. And again, like Matt was saying, you end up relying on your personal networks, which are fantastic, but often, you know, there's so many more services out there that we're just unaware of. So for me personally, I found that because it was just so overwhelming, and it was often when I needed, you know, to find something immediately, I just didn't even go down the rabbit hole of trying to see what was out there. So that's one thing that I definitely have found very challenging in the past.
And Kai Wyndham, if you wouldn't mind just mentioning, you talked about it was difficult to find the starting point just for you, and then we might move on to another. Jackie, what was your starting point in regards to looking for or finding out, you know, of finding out, knowing what you knew you didn't know, if you like?
Well, I guess when you're trying to find a specific support, whether in my case it was looking at some learning support options for my children, I didn't know where to begin. And so I ended up relying on a bit of a Google search, and also asking, you know, trusted friends if they'd had any experience, or they could recommend anyone. But often, you know, everyone's experience is very individual, it's very unique. Something that, you know, that myself and my family need isn't always relevant to the experience of my friends. So you sort of get stuck. You sort of start to go down the rabbit hole and spiral, and then it all just gets too hard. And personally for me, that's when I just become very overwhelmed and just stop looking.
Okay, thanks for sharing that, Kai. I'm glad that you were able to find and access some of the services that you did need. Jackie, do we have anybody else who'd like to share their journey, their personal experience?
No, nobody hears game at the moment, Ian, but that could change. We'll let you know.
All right, thanks for that, Jackie. Look, as we said previously, if you think about you'd like to share some of your stories, your journeys, we will have time for Q&A at the end. Kai, as you're the only one that's talking to us at the moment, any last comments in regards to how you've moved from where you were? And then we'll go, Matt, I'll cross back to you for your own personal experience.
Just unmute, Kai.
Hi. I was just going to wrap up by saying that it is, you know, 2020. We live in a fast information, you know, technology world, and just knowing that that there's a simple app that's being designed at the moment by Team Servulink, where all the services and networks, community networks, can be in one place on your phone, handy to get to when you need it. It's something that I think is really important, and look forward to being able to have that at my fingertips.
Okay, thank you very much, Kai. Now, Matt, as an ex-serving military officer, Matt, if you could tell us a little bit about your story and how that's brought you in order to bring together this thing of Servulink to help with finding, accessing and working with veterans and service providers.
Great, thanks, Ian. And yeah, as I said earlier, so I served for 30 years, left the Army 2018. Over that time frame, a whole range of different roles and employments I had in the Army, and both working here in Australia and overseas. And I was aware that, yes, there are and were a whole range of potential supports and different supports that could have been provided to me and my family, and we took advantage of some of those along the way. But there is that security blanket and that tribe or that family around you when you're in uniform. You tend to take it for granted, and you don't seem to think about just how lucky you are to have that made available to you while you're in that organisation, be it Army, Navy, Air Force, be it within the Department of Defence more broadly. And I think the same applies to most of my peers and colleagues that I served with as well. As I transitioned, I found it was a relatively smooth process, although what fundamentally we did, and I did, and I say we because I separated about the same time as a number of my colleagues, is that you do rely on your mates. You rely on your networks. You rely on the people that know around you that you know you may not have seen or heard from for years, but in classic military fashion, you just pick up the conversation where you left off. Look at, they can have suggestions and ideas and connections and, on referrals for you to assist you in moving on and hopefully finding some employment, hopefully getting you into a good situation for you and your family. And I was lucky with that in that sense. It was a friend of mine that reached out, hadn't seen him for 15 years, and suddenly he's sort of saying, "Oh, I heard you got out or getting out." And yeah, he had no idea. I had no idea. I hadn't spoken to him for years, but there's that network in play again. And that's really what helped me in the transition to getting to new employment. And I've been very fortunate so far in that sense. And that's enabled me to keep going. And indeed, as I've worked into the consulting work here in Canberra to understand and lift a few rocks around the entire veteran service and support environment. And I've just got a couple of quotes from some other soldiers, sailors, airmen, airwomen who have been, suffering from PTSD specifically, and some of their comments or their significant others have had PTSD issues. And just some of the comments, this goes back to a parliamentary report a couple of years ago. So from a fellow by the name of Sam, usually you find out about organisations through your mates. His wife, most turn to their mates. Some don't even know what services are available or where to find them. Another one, Charlie, who did 8 years, state to state, town to town. Many businesses and organisations do offer support to veterans. It's just not known about. And another fellow, Harry, there are lots of services available. People just need to be educated about the services that they provide and how families and individuals can get in touch. It can get overwhelming as well because there are so many. And so it's a constant common theme here of that complexity and not necessarily knowing what's there, therefore not accessing it. But again, it's through the network and the community that really made the difference for me, and I'm sure with a lot of these other veterans. And I'll just leave you on the point or the question of what if. So, ultimately, worst case in some cases, and it's sadly, I'll reflect back on the issue of veteran and defence suicide. But, what if those people that have been led to that very utter act of desperation in the final analysis, what if they had in the lead up or prior to that situation, the ability to find and access support and service or just a connection, someone to speak to listen to hear their story and to perhaps give them that support that may have prevented them from making that decision. And it can only reflect on the far too many cases that have occurred over the years, including, there's obviously things in the media recently describing and really taking us back on that journey of how tough it's been for some of these people, guys and girls who otherwise in their service career have had a great, outstanding service and done great things for their country, but yet get to that final situation where they're just so desperate. So with Servulink, we're looking to address that fundamental idea of connection, so that to avoid, to prevent one more of these, if we can do that and really provide the opportunity for people to link and connect to support that is there, then we're making a difference. Okay, I think we're going to move now to a panel discussion, Ian. But before I hand over to Ian, I'd just like to say that Belinda Wilson, as CEO of Bravery Trust, has been our #1 card-carrying supporter from early on, and I thank her for that. And it's really outstanding to have your time and energy to contribute today. So thanks, Belinda. And we'll also hopefully have Scott Waugh, CEO of Legacy, coming in to provide a few thoughts and ideas around and some great initiatives around what Legacy are doing. So thanks.
Thanks, Matt. Along our journey as Servulink, we've worked with dozens, if not hundreds, of service providers, and we've just been overwhelmed with some of the absolute dedication that some of these service providers have. So today we've got 2 service providers that have taken the time. Thank you very much, Belinda, and to Scott, to talk to us a little bit about what they do. So first up, I'd like to introduce Belinda Wilson, CEO of Bravery Trust. Belinda, thank you for coming and joining with us. And Belinda, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about Bravery Trust and your journey of how you've got to where you are today.
Definitely. Well, Ian and Matt and Jackie, thank you so much for the invitation today. And for everyone watching out there, there's quite a few names I know. So hello, and I wish I could see your smiling faces, but it's great to know that you're on the line. As Ian mentioned, I am the CEO of Bravery Trust, and Bravery Trust is a national organisation that is there to support serving and ex-serving members of our Australian Defence Force with urgent financial support. To meet our criteria, it's that you have to be serving or have served, be injured as a result of your service, and be in financial hardship. So we exist simply because there are gaps in various services, and that's not pointing the finger at anyone, but we know that when it comes to your finances, they can be very, very complex, and support will always be needed, as will a helping hand or a listening voice. And Kai, can I thank you so much for sharing your story? That what you said, I didn't know where to start, so I didn't. As a CEO, that's exactly what keeps me up at night. And that's exactly what I saw when I started at Bravery Trust about 18 months ago now. It was people, they were sick and tired of the merry-go-round, asking you for help, not knowing where to go, getting sort of shoved from one provider to the other, and just giving up or just not starting at all. My background, I'm actually a lawyer, so I know about red tape and I know how to cut red tape. So for me, one of the biggest things was, if people are reaching out for urgent assistance, how do we remove a lot of those barriers? With Bravery Trust, we are there for that urgent financial piece. And one of the biggest things we were finding was people would reach out at that last stage. So they'd keep going, no, there's someone else worse off than me, or I don't know where to start, I'm just not going to do it. So that when they made that call to Bravery Trust, it was the call usually on a Friday afternoon saying, I've just been kicked out of my rental, all my possessions are on the street, the locks have been changed, I don't know where I and the kids are going to be sleeping tonight. It's a very hard situation to get someone back into accommodation and setting them up at that stage. So we've done a lot of work over the last 18 months to provide hopefully that safe zone for people to actually reach out earlier. And it's really refreshing, if you can actually say that in this context, but it's great to know that people are comfortable now to reach out. And most of the calls now, instead of the locks have been changed, it's more around, I've paid this month's rent, but I'm not too sure how I'm going to meet next month's commitments. I'm looking for some early discussion. I just want to know what options are out there. And as an ESO provider, that's exactly where we want to be. Why I'm really excited about Servulink is Servulink certainly plays that connecting role. As an ESO, where our obligation is to look after the veteran community and to make sure that when people are ready to reach out, that help is there. But there's a lot of us out there, there's a lot of different starting points, and if we don't have a technology platform that makes it easier for the veteran, their partner, their children, that can be a really confusing start. So we want to make sure that we get that start right. We want to make sure that people can do the research, they can do it at the time that suits them, not that suits a business. So very excited to see where we are in this journey, and really congratulate Servulink, and a great initiative to be funded by DVA.
Belinda, just a little bit while we've still got you, and just while we're getting some comments coming through on the chat, tell us a little bit about your story. You mentioned that you were a lawyer. How did you make the step from a lawyer into starting up and moving into this whole different area of Bravery Trust? What was the motivation or the drive for that?
Yeah, so for me, I've always had a close connection with communities. I'm originally from Gippsland. So if any participants are from that way, a big shout out, especially to my mum, who I haven't seen since the start of the year in Gippsland. And So community has always been really important. I started my profession as a lawyer, and it's not just that day-to-day advice that you're giving, it's that bigger piece, providing the voice for those that don't necessarily have that voice or can't contribute. As part of my career, I was the president of the Law Institute of Victoria, and that's the peak body here in Victoria for the legal profession, and also did a stint as the acting CEO there. So when I finished that role, I really had a huge sense of justice and wanting to contribute to that larger piece, providing that voice, the advocacy piece, making a difference and being able to use my legal skills in an entirely different way. So I was very fortunate to be interviewed for the role of CEO at Bravery Trust and ultimately got that position. And so for me, it's really been about, I am a child of a veteran, but I haven't served myself. So it's using my different perception coming into an industry that's all very new to me, seeing what the barriers are, looking towards how do we innovate. So for me, one of the biggest things is technology platforms, data, and how that feeds into long-term policy shifting or policy debate. So I suppose I've had an interesting background, and that's not touching on my my seafood background either. So perhaps that's a story for another day, though, Ian.
Thanks for sharing that with us, Belinda. It's just really amazing how people see something, they seize upon it, but then few of us actually do something about it, and you've moved into that actual action. Now, we've had a number of questions on the chat, which are pretty specific to Servulink, but I'm going to reframe a couple of them just in regards to how Bravery Trust does things. The first thing I'd ask you is, what's the best way? You talked about early engagement being best. What's the best way for people to engage with Bravery Trust?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a few different ways. We've got a website that has all the information that veterans and their partners do need, so that they can start doing some research there, whether Bravery Trust is the right channel for them. We also have a free 1-800 number, which is 1-800-BRAVERY. So we make it very easy for the veteran, the family member to reach out at no cost. And we have a very dedicated and professional team, which is a national team, a very small team, but they handle about 60 calls on average a day. And that team will have a chat with the veteran or their family member or their child and go through their exact circumstances. So we don't actually have a one-size-fits-all box. It's for us, it's that unique conversation. It's that reaching out piece that we really we want to get to know the veteran and their circumstances to see what the best help moving forward is for them, be it financial counselling, which we've just veteran-specific financial counselling that we've just introduced, or whether it be helping them find a different referral that will suit their specific needs.
Thank you. And one more question. Again, it was more of a Servulink type question, but I think it's also very relevant for Bravery Trust. It's the question around service providers collaborating together. Lots of well-minded service providers doing their thing. How currently does Bravery Trust engage with the broader landscape of service providers to provide more of a holistic, if you like, approach to the veteran and the veteran family's needs, which we will also talk a little bit about when Matt talks about Servulink.
Yeah, definitely, Ian, and that is where, when we unite, our powers are even greater. So we've spent a lot of time at Bravery Trust making sure that we've got all those relationships and connections, and we're actually putting the veteran first and putting all the services around them. Now, at Bravery Trust, we're there to do that urgent financial piece, be that welfare or financial counselling. So we have our really strong commitment and our lanes. Where the veteran and their family need a different service, we will work with, it might be their rehabilitation consultant, it might be their advocate, it may be a different service provider that can provide all those, I suppose, tools in the toolkit that veteran and their family member may need. Importantly, the referral into Bravery Trust too. We've done a lot of work with Department of Veteran Affairs, Open Arms, rehabilitation consultants, Transition Authority as well, and other big ESOs to make sure that they know that we can all work together where that veteran needs specific assistance.
Oh, terrific. Thank you, Belinda. I think the overwhelming sense I get from the chat is that as veterans working in a large, everybody working together, and then looking at the service providers with that same sense of working together and providing that connection. So thanks for that, Belinda. Now, Belinda will be sticking around for some more Q&A at the end. Scott Wall will be joining us in a little while. But Matt, I think while we wait for Scott to join us from Legacy Australia, I wonder if now, Matt, we might jump ahead a little bit to in regards to how is Servulink, what is Servulink, and particularly a framework around that connection piece as we're all working together.
Great. We can address some questions if there's some that are coming in now, if you like, or I'm easy.
We do, yeah, we do have some specific ones. So I'm not sure. I don't want to sort of ask them now and have them steal your thunder on your presentation. But one question was, I think part of it's been answered, which was how is Servulink being funded, and do users need to pay to access the services?
Okay, well, how about I answer that now, and then I can get into I've got a couple more slides, which will take people on the journey of what we're building, what we're doing. So at the moment, Servulink is funded through a government grant in terms of the seed funding for the software development for the app. So that was a Supporting Younger Veterans grant that we applied for in late 2019, and was very fortunately awarded to us in about May this year. And that was very specifically bounded around the younger veterans cohort and also mental health. However, what we're building and growing is going to encompass a whole lot more than that in relation to a whole range of different categories of support and service, and indeed all cohorts of veterans. So it's not constrained to one particular cohort in terms of age or demographic at all, and that's our vision. It's all veterans and all family and supporters. The ongoing funding, we are looking at service providers providing a registration and ongoing subscription fee when they register with the app, and we're looking to do that as we build and grow our undertaking and our prototype, and move into 2021 for our launch. At no time will any user of the app, be they veteran or family or supporting person, at no time will they pay to use it. It'll be a free service for users. But again, service providers would pay under a fee structure that we are designing. I'll now quickly, I will move to screen share again, just if you bear with me. Okay, so you'll see there our logo, services, community and support. All right, so, and I'm really looking forward, hopefully we can get Scott in. I know he had some other commitments, but to speak about Legacy. But in the interim, let's just talk about what we are doing and building with Servulink. So we are building an app. We're using technology and data to support and empower the veteran and family to connect. And I'll just, hopefully my PowerPoint can work. So this is our vision and our intent and what our purpose fundamentally. So we see ourselves as unique. However, we are not. This is not a monopoly. We understand that there are hundreds of different types of technology-enabled companies and entities and providers out there doing their level best and doing great work in relation to a particular service or support, or a range of things in a particular region or area in Australia. We are not looking to replicate or duplicate that. We are looking to further empower and enable those well-positioned men and women who are doing fantastic work through our apps, so that we can actually generate a benefit for service providers as much as we do for veterans and families. You can see our vision there. We're all about empowerment. We are putting the power back in the veteran and family's hands to effectively become independent, not dependent, on the services and support. So absolutely utilise them, absolutely find them, connect, network, collaborate, get the community going to improve your lives absolutely across a whole range of different categories of support. But it's really empowering you with that opportunity through technology and through either your device, or your access to the internet, however you're doing it, to connect. And so it's an app. It's an information hub. We've used the term digital compass. We've used the term online service catalogue or information hub, information service. It's really effectively that database, active automated database of veteran and family service and support, all in the one place. Are we ever going to be comprehensive with the various thousands that are out there? Who knows? We might one day, but we aim to give it a crack and get as many providers as we can on board, so that people are going to have something that's valuable, that's usable, that suits them. And we're talking about fundamentally a geolocation type of service, and I can explain that a bit further now. Well, firstly, before I do, importantly, critically, our values and what we're about as an organisation. As you can see there, we've selected very carefully and absolutely as a team fundamentally believe in these as the foundations of what we're about. And we would expect all of our providers that get on board and load their data with Servulink to reflect and enable these values at their essence. All about trust to and from the veteran and family, compassion, caring, and absolutely making it clear that we care and we're all about caring and support. Respect and dignity, that goes to the culture of the clientele. So veterans and families are a unique crowd. I'm one of them, I should know. We are not the average user of technology client base, and we at Servulink completely understand that and get that. And we want to preserve that respect, dignity, privacy, and discretion when it comes to both your service, what you've done, and indeed what you are seeking and how you're seeking and searching for information. And lastly, and importantly, it's that relentless pursuit of support to improve you and your situation, never giving up and always being there for you. So here's some examples now of some geolocation sort of sketches that we've used just to inform the initial build of our app. So we're talking about a initial sort of landing page where you'd look at on the left-hand side there. We've got 10 different categories, starting with mental and physical well-being and health, if you like, but importantly, identifying a number of others which have been taken from Institute of Health and Welfare Studies into veteran needs, but we're also based on our own experience and knowledge in terms of things like community, so networks, and transition from military, and also advocacy, which is it's not just your advocacy in relation to DVA, but it's advocacy in all forms for veterans and families. So who are those entities, organisations, or online offerings that might be available to advocate for you as a veteran? Okay, so you can see there the map and very broad outline, a bit of a sketch, and we aim to have a series of filters on that. Here's another screen just depicting how it might look as we build this thing. You can see there's a number of geolocated services. Indicatively, you're talking about, in this case, it's healthcare, and we've just put a generic, health centre type address in there. I wouldn't encourage anyone to go to that exact address. It probably won't find anything, but that's a mock-up. That's an idea of what our search functionality will show. And indeed, at the bottom there, you can see, based on some search engine functionality, other services that you might be interested in. So we aim to, through search history, be able, and through what you're searching for, be able to develop a bit of a search algorithm to assist you in some of these other categories that might be related to healthcare, and through filters to enable you to find other support and services that might be relevant. And that's just a quick couple of shots of using that geolocation service is what we're about. Now, where are we going? So we're on our prototype journey, our proof of concept journey. We aim to have a prototype trialling and testing through the alpha and beta process in the back end of this year, so an initial version by Christmas, and then some testing, validation, so we're launching in the new year in 2021 with a initial sort of version 1.0 of the app, with as many service providers loaded on there as we can possibly get, so that as we move forward, we can continue to adjust and evolve the service. And I would just lastly leave you with a quick snapshot of the website, where you can, that's the front page, and it's up and running with full functionality. We've got a registration and a contact page on there, as well as links direct into all of our social media, which is across LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. All right, I've probably spoken enough, but that's kind of where we are and where we're going and what we're building, folks. So hopefully that's starting to make sense and maybe even answer some of the questions that have started to come up.
You certainly did. You certainly did answer quite a few of the questions, Matt. Thank you. We've got a good one here, though. How do you vet a service provider so that you know that you've got good ones coming on board?
That's a very good question. In fact, it's one that's been asked by a number of different stakeholders that we've engaged in defence, in DVA, in joint transitions. We, in the first instance, will be utilising our own board and our key advisory team that we have around us. So we've got, I think, 6 people in our core group. They're a mixture of veteran family members, all well experienced. We have Michelle, who is our lead mental health specialist within our team. And so internally with our team, we'll be doing our own sort of due diligence and checking off of the bona fides of a given organisation when they register with us, either through the website or in person or via email. We'll then have the opportunity to, once we've run through that, if we still seek more validation and justification, if you like, we'll check in with our strategic partners. So we actually have Bravery Trust, we have Legacy, we have Commando Welfare Trust, and we have Wandering Warriors, just to name 4. But our 4 initial strategic partners who we know and respect, and we respect their perspectives and opinions in relation to the credentials of a given provider as they might come to us. So we can check in with our own community of trusted, of the network, if you like, of strategic partners to provide that further check as well. So within that and that sequence, we should be able to verify and validate so that effectively that organisation that we're looking to bring on are reflective of our value set, as I explained earlier.
Matt, sorry, Jackie, just one question, and it is something that we're doing. Matt, talk us through the testing of the prototype of the app with that control group of maybe 20 or 30 veterans and their families, so that we make sure that we're building the right type of application that suits the needs for them. That was a couple of comments on the chat, but I also know it's something we were going to talk a little bit about.
Yeah, so as I mentioned briefly, so we've got a proof of concept process that's underway, and we aim to have the first prototype of the app ready to go within the next month or so, and then pushing out to that select user group. So there's actually 2 user groups, 2 test groups. We have a user group, so a cohort of younger veterans, current serving, former serving across the 3 services, and all their family members. And we've got around about 30 of those so far. All guys and girls who have volunteered to assist us with the testing of the initial app. And the idea is that our provider would send a version of the app to them, and they would simply click through a particular survey and check in on aspects of usability, user functionality, and user experience that they would recommend, pros and cons, etc. We're going to do the same for a test provider group. So again, 20, about the mid-20s now, we've actually got on board, from large national offerings such as Bravery Trust and Legacy, down through to some of the small service providers such as service dogs, entities, equine therapy. We've got some others in relation to financial support, crisis accommodation support, etc. And the idea is that they would also get a copy of the app once we're ready, and that they would look at it from a provider perspective and provide that live feedback to us through the month of November, so that by the time we hit December, we've got something that's been through an initial round of testing.
And Sue, just from the chat, Sue, if you'd like to be involved in that testing of looking at the functionality, the user experience as we talk about it, please either through Jackie, through Wellbeing Australia, or go on to the Servulink site. Let us know. We'd, if you're impassioned to make that comment and allow, we'd love to have you be part of that test group. So please reach out to us, servulink.com.au, and we can include you into that beta test group in that sort of November, December phase.
And I just final point is that testing and prototyping process is free of charge. There's no cost to any service provider or user in those test groups. As I said, though, as we move to launch in the new year, we'll be looking to introduce a fee structure for service providers once we have that initial offering ready to go.
Now, Jackie, we're just waiting in regards to Scott. I just want to check and see if Scott has been able to join us yet. Otherwise, Jackie, I just wonder if there's if you might facilitate some Q&A.
Sure, no problem at all. So we've got a comment as much as a question, I think, and from about service providers need to engage collaboratively in a holistic manner to fully support military personnel. This includes incorporating qualified professional level career development practitioners. The Servulink app should be able to help to be a tool towards a collaborative process to support the whole person's needs of the individual and the families as well. So I think you're going beyond just. I think one of the other questions was about, is it just on emergency care or is it wider services? So I think this might speak to some of the wider services.
And I can field that one. So absolutely, career development support is key. It's actually something that reflective of your entire career while you're serving, former serving, etc. We would see that under the employment and possibly the education categories of support or search functionality on the app as we're building at the moment. That's where those providers and those facilitators could get involved and have their credentials on there. And if they have a national or regional or state-based online presence, then that's fine. We can facilitate that. Those points of contact, those websites, those social media sites through our app as well, as much as the in-person delivery of that career development support. So absolutely not just for immediate crisis support, not at all, although that can be no doubt facilitated through our app, but also the deliberate, more planned and steady state support and facilitation of that, absolutely through Servulink.
And Matt, one comment for me, if you could go back one slide, and it comes to this holistic approach for sometimes not knowing what you know. Just talk us through a little bit about how the other services you might be interested in go beyond just the services within that category that people might be looking at, and how that incorporates the holistic view of Servulink. Yep.
So I'm going to take you back one more. So the initial screen there, you can see there with the 10 categories of support that we've identified so far. There are obviously interrelationships with those. If you have employment, if you have financial support and stability, then generally your mental well-being will probably be more certain and more steady, if you like, perhaps, than others that don't have that solid employment, solid financial backing situation. So there's interrelationships there, and the same applies across and throughout the other categories as well. So we are as we design, are in the co-design process with the software developer, we are making sure that if you are searching for a particular thing, and as you can see there, that's a physical well-being or health-related search for this one. The other services piece is where we with the software developer will design algorithms that enable similar searches or similar categories of or connected categories of service or support that might be relevant. So in this case, physical well-being and health, then that can also go to, you might be interested in communities of people. So it might be associations, organisations that are related to the same provision of health, or it might be the broader health sector, if you like, when it comes to rehab, when it comes to physio, when it comes to broader wellness and well-being in the mental health space as well. There might be a yoga provider, which is, or a rehab, a gym potentially, or the physical health side of things being also made available through the lens of allied health or other fitness type providers that are relevant that could be connected with that health inquiry that started the process. So it's the same would apply across and between, family and therefore community, education, employment. Transition from military would be an interesting one because we have identified that specifically because that's quite a vulnerable time of someone's life, and just to make sure that we can aggregate and have function services and support available in a whole range of different areas, but that are pertinent and bespoke to that transition time frame, where you'll be searching for that connection and that helping hand, that bridge, if you like, into the civilian environment. So we're looking to have things that you might find under the other categories also popping up there with transition, and indeed the advocacy is a big link there as well. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, perfect. I think that's a really, really good answer. Thanks, Matt. We've got a comment here about I think everybody getting on board, and I'd just sort of like to add to that and maybe frame a question from that comment. But I'm a big advocate for not reinventing the wheel. We've had lots and lots of different attempts at trying to have one-stop shops and all this sort of thing. How much buy-in are you getting and interest are you getting in from other ESOs and service providers to come on board to be that? Because this is going to work well if we've got loads of organisations coming on and having their services linked to your app.
Yep. So far it's been really encouraging. We've spoken to in person or Zoom and or just on the phone, probably in the order of about 30 to 35 providers, big and small, national, regional, state, government and non-government. And we've found, I think there was only 2 so far that have said, look, we don't have capability to get engaged just yet, but we'd be really interested to see where this goes. That's about as negative as it's got. All of the others have been really positive around the potential of what it is and our vision of what it is we're building. We don't want to duplicate. We don't want to replicate. We are not naive enough to think that there perhaps can ever be a true, comprehensive, universal one-stop shop for information. That's something that perhaps won't be realisable because the whole environment is dynamic. It's evolving, it's growing, there are providers coming on, coming off all the time. But we have had really positive reflections from all of those we've engaged with. And we're also looking to go to those hubs of information. So coming out of DVA, Open Arms, obviously with the big providers, such as Legacy and Bravery Trust, those networks within networks, if you like. So some of the connections that we can be referred onto from some of the big providers to the smaller providers that are in their sort of broader ecosystem. We've had those on referrals already, and that's been quite encouraging as well, because we're here and we're able to connect to other online services, websites, social media, and other apps. I mean, we're happy to telegraph other people's apps and to help promote and connect other people's apps as much as what it is we've got with a direct provision linkage from our app. So far so good. We've also got state-based entities. So both Victorian and New South Wales government veteran service officers are on board for the proof of concept. They've signed up to it, which is fantastic. We've had at a senior level in DVA, I've just had another meeting this morning with another key player in there. DVA are looking to connect us and are connecting us with a number of other sort of hub-type providers that have got subsidiaries and other connections within a network. And some of the larger, higher performing regional and sub-branch RSLs, we've got some good relationships with already as well. So it's promising so far. We're not getting complacent though. We want to make sure that we can continue to be of value. And the key value proposition for the service provider is that we can expand your reach, your connection, your feedback in terms of once we're scaling and this is operating, you'll be able to understand what cohort, what type of veteran and client is searching for what type of service and where. And so you'll be able to also map your own provision of services and how they are, and sort of heat map that around the country and in your particular area to understand just how your performance is tracking, and in relation to others as well. So it's a feedback loop, and ultimately though it's promotion. I mean, we're assisting promoting you and your service to the entire audience of all the other entities that are on there as well. And right now, with just our 21 providers that are on there now for the proof of concept, we're talking about upwards of about 100,000 people around the country that are direct beneficiaries or direct linkages with those providers that are already signed up and onboarded for the proof of concept. So if you sign up with us, if you register with us for the trial, for the proof of concept, and indeed ongoing, then you can benefit from that exposure to the clientele, if you like, of all the other providers that are on there, if that makes sense. So there's a sort of value statement around it.
And Matt, I might just ask to bookend that. Belinda, what was it that made you decide to come on board as one of the founders and promoters of Servulink?
Yeah, definitely. And it speaks exactly to Kai's opening comments. She didn't know where to start, so she didn't. And that was really, a big thing for Bravery Trust. We know that the help is required. Our case studies show that people are in need of help and they're falling through the gaps. And for us, it was for me, it was a chance conversation with Matt. Heard about the concept that was being sort of written up as a grant at that stage to DVA, and I saw this as a great, I suppose, knocking down one of those barriers. Because we operate nationally, we don't have a shop front, we don't have somewhere where people know where we are. We operate all across Australia, and for veterans overseas, Aussie veterans that is, we help overseas as well. So we really wanted that virtual connecting marketplace, and for us, Servulink was definitely that opportunity.
Thanks, Belinda. I just got to remember to unmute myself. So, Jackie, just in the last couple of minutes, we got any other comments, or should we wrap the conversation up?
I think we can probably wrap the conversation up. So there's one question about geolocation. So you've kind of answered it actually in little snippets, but the platform you're building will actually be able to locate services in the person's proximity. Is that correct?
That's right. Yep. And so you should be able to set the the radius of the area that you're searching in. Importantly, we've identified that may not be where you're sitting right now. That might be another place in Australia where, for example, you might be transitioning from the military and moving to another area, and you'd like to understand what's available in that area when you get there. So yes, geolocation is central to it, but it's not everything. There is obviously the ability to signpost and guide people towards online, national, regional type support and services as well, and community. I mean, organisations, connections to associations, to sporting groups, to hobby organisations, therapeutic support, effectively, ultimately anywhere where a veteran and or family member can benefit and get some value.
Awesome. That's wonderful. I think maybe some wrap-up comments, Ian?
Jackie, really, I just wanted to say the thank yous to everybody, and then I think that's us out, if that works okay with yourself. I'm just mindful of the time with a minute to go. I'd really like to thank Jackie, you and Wellbeing Australia, for the opportunity for Servulink to talk. Belinda, thank you so much for taking the time on behalf of Bravery Trust to tell us a little bit about your story. Matt, thank you for sharing the information, your own journey, and also Servulink. And to everybody, to Jen, Sue, Kai, those of you who've put in the chats and asked for the comments, I'd really like to thank you. And I'd like to thank all veterans and all their families for the service and support that you've given the country over the years. So with that, Jackie, thank you again for the opportunity. And look forward to working with Wellbeing Australia again in the future.
Fantastic. Thanks, team. It's been lovely having you with us. I think that the more we share these stories and the innovation and the expertise about bringing services together and bringing possible well-being into people's hands, I think that is, any of those stories are definitely worth telling. And as we've always said, if we save one life through this process, it's all been worthwhile. So go team. And really wishing you all the best. And I think maybe we might book you to come back and talk to us again when we've when you're past your testing and you're ready for your proper launch. But we've been really honoured to have you here as part of Veterans Health Week and the third week of the Veteran Wellbeing Summit.
Thanks so much, Jackie and team, and yeah, to those veterans out there, thanks for your service. It never goes astray, that comment, but I mean it. And also service providers, everything you do every day for our veteran community is absolutely outstanding. Thanks.
Yep, well done, folks. Have a great day. We'll see you at another session. Bye now.
Thanks, Jackie.
Hi, my name's Scott Waugh and I'm the CEO of Legacy Australia. Legacy Australia is a very proud strategic partner of Servulink, and I believe that what Matt and Ian are developing in the Servulink app will fill a critical gap in our veteran community, and that is a one-stop shop for all ESOs, veterans and their families to find out about what veteran service providers and support organisations are out there offering them help and assistance. Legacy is a connector for our veteran families to ensure that they are not disadvantaged. A tool like Servulink will be a great asset to our legatees, our volunteers, who are the mentors and case managers of the veteran families that we look after. Servulink is a great application with massive potential to fill that gap in our veteran community. I wish all the best to Matt and Ian as they develop this fantastic tool.